Hello and welcome back to Guillotine Games. We're in Scrap Mechanic as part of our progression series that we're putting together here. I wanted to talk about farming and farming progression, specifically in the early to mid game. When you first get into the tutorial for survival, you're at your crash ship, and very close by you'll find this billboard that you can see behind me there, or out in front of me. And it's pretty much a pictograph telling you exactly what to do when farming. From the left to the right, we're going to put down some fertilizer, going to plant a seed, going to use a bucket to get some water, use that water, dump it on the crop, fertilize it, wait some time, and then we get our results. Now I can tell you that the fertilizer is optional, but it speeds up the process, simply put. When you start out, you're only really going to have, commonly going to see carrot seeds, red beet seeds, and tomato seeds. And obviously they grow carrots and red beets and tomatoes. These are, as your starter crops, fairly easy to manage as long as you don't plant too many at once. And we're going to get into all the gory details of being careful not to trigger raids, and when you want to trigger a raid, you know, how much can you handle. Now, a raid is, simply put, if you plant crops of too much value all in one area, essentially robots come and attack, trying to destroy your crops. They're like little crop police. But they also bring helpful loot from when you take them out. So it's not all bad. It's actually kind of a good thing as long as you know how to prepare for it. So let's just go through this process real quick. This is how you start out. When you get over this area, there will be some fertilizer patches like these already on the ground. You may see some older videos in the game that claim that you can't pick these up. You actually can now, just with a right click and hold. So fertilizer can be moved around and placed in different configurations. All right, so I've got my fertilizer in place. You can see this is actually already fully grown tomato, so we'll just leave that there. I then need some seeds, so I'm going to grab red beet seeds since we already have an example. And I'm going to plant that seed. You can see there. There it is. Now we have to grab water with our bucket. There's a bucket right there, but I already have one in my inventory, so I'm going to use that. We're going to grab some water here. You just come down and click. You can kind of see it. When I run, it'll move around a little bit, but there's water in my bucket now. And then I just kind of aim and drop it on. Now, after some time, and it's actually a specific amount of time per crop, it will grow into it goes through a couple stages, but eventually becomes a fully ripe vegetable or fruit or whatever you're growing. So once it's ready, you can just pick it up. And generally, I'll tell you, it's going to take until overnight. Now, and it may take 2 nights, depending on the crop that you're planting. Fertilizer will speed up that process, but it's not required. As long as the soil is wet, you're good to go. Now, safe crop sizes, and I'm going to show some images from the wiki up here, so as I'm talking through this, just to show you what can trigger a raid and what won't. Essentially, the early crops that I mentioned, carrots and beets, red beets and tomatoes, those individually, each seed is worth 1 point. It uses a point-based system to determine whether or not it's going to send robots in, whether they're attracted to it, to attack your crop. The early crops, those 3, carrots, tomatoes, red beets, you can plant up to 9 of those before it will trigger a raid. And raids are timed, and you get a warning, and I'm going to show you what that looks like in just a bit here. For now, though, I'm just going to go ahead and claim this other one. We'll leave this one here, because you can't actually pick it up. I don't think, no, can't pick it up while it's growing. But we won't wait for that to grow. That'll be incredibly boring for you. I'm going to go ahead and head back to my base, where I've got a little bit of a bigger farm to kind of show the rest of this process. Okay, and here we are back at the mechanic shop that the tutorial sends you to as your first place to kind of get comfortable. We can see here in my little farm, I've got 5x5 plots laid out of fertilizer, and you can see here we've got some tomatoes growing. If we count these out, there's 9 here, and there is no concern of raids because tomatoes are only worth 1 point for determining whether there's going to be a raid and of what size, and I can get up to 9 safely. So I'm going to go ahead and harvest all those up. Notice how we get both tomatoes and tomato seeds. These early crops especially are more than sustainable, meaning that you get more seeds than you need, so you can continuously grow. From that, I'll have more than the seeds that I use to plant, so I'll have enough to actually grow even more. However, that comes with a risk. So I'm going to show you what it looks like when a raid is started. Now, I'm currently planting at a bit of a weird time, middle of the night, and that's okay. The actual best time to plant is in the early morning hours between like roughly 4 and 6 a.m. so that your crop grows throughout the day, but then you can harvest it before you hit another morning. And the reason for that is you can actually end up, from planting a single crop, you can end up with 2 raids, having to defend 2 of them. One where your plants are there, one where you've already harvested and there's no plants, but the raid was already kicked off, the timer already started. So be aware that they will still come if that little red timer is running, and I'll show you what that looks like. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and plant, but I'm going to do 10 this time just to show what happens. Now, I'm not going to bother to water these by hand, because I'm going to show you that as you progress, you can get into some automated watering systems. And I'll cover this in more detail in the future. It uses a couple of linear actuators called pistons in this game, and then the actual water system. Oh, you can see there, unauthorized farming detected. Notice the little red timer. I'm going to turn off the watering since we don't need any more. So you can see now it's saying that we have 22 hours and 20 minutes roughly of game time, which is actually equivalent to 22 minutes and 14 seconds now. And so what's going to happen is when that timer runs to 0, bots are going to show up. And the amount of bots and the level of bots and the kind of bots are determined on several different factors. What's the total crop value, based on the individual seeds and the total amount of seeds that I have planted in this area, and it determines the score. And then if I'm planting repeatedly, day after day after day, or repeatedly in a row, and I'm triggering these raids over and over again, there's actually an escalation process too. So the raids will get a little tougher. They'll send in more challenging assaults if you continuously plant day to day. Now, early on, if all you have is your hammer, like I do right now, and you don't, let's just assume you don't have any kind of defenses built either. You don't have, spinning saw blades or these funky looking things, which I'll show you in a bit what they do. If you don't have anything like that, you can still actually defend yourself pretty well, defend your little farm against the bot raids, as long as you keep your crops fairly small. I'm comfortable just with my little hammer. I can plant up to a full 25, so a 5x5 area, as long as they're all 1 point value crops, meaning tomatoes, red beets, or carrots. I can plot all those, and then when the raid ticks down to almost 0, I just kind of run out here into this area to try and attract the bots, because if they see you, they're going to try and get to you, but really their main goal is to try and break in and destroy your crops. And if they can get into the area where your crops are, every attack that they make destroys 1 or more crops, so they sweep through it very quickly and destroy all your effort, and you get nothing back out of that. You don't get the seeds, you don't get the fruit or the vegetables, you get nothing. So it's important to defend them. Placing some simple walls in place can slow the bots down while you're out here fighting them with your hammer. Be warned though, at planting even these little 1 point crops in a full 25, you do get several bots, and if you do it night after night, you can get multiple hay bots as well as some tote bots. And if there's too many and you get overwhelmed and you're fighting them and, you know, kiting, running backwards or whatnot, trying to fight them, there might be one chewing on your wall or trying to break in and destroy your crops, and you'll lose the effort. So ramp slowly is what I'm trying to say. Try 10 at first, then move on to maybe 15 or 20 and see what that looks like. And just remember that if you keep chain planting, you know, you harvest and then plant again, you're going to trigger bigger raids because you're repeatedly triggering the raids. So there's also an escalation there as well. So early farming, imagine if I didn't have any of this fancy stuff out here and all I had is a simple little wall around it, and I'm just using my hammer to defend it. And I'm going to stick to like 10 to 15 on the ground at a time. Once I start making brick and other things, and I'm very comfortable going up to 25 points in crops, these low-level crops, laying them all out, and just defending it with my hammer. There are defenses you can use to make it a little easier to defend even more valuable crops. So let's talk about that for just a moment. I'm going to use my connect tool and just show what's going on here. There's a little gas motor right back here with a little gas tank connected to a switch, and then connected to, see these orange bearings out here. And that gas motor, when I turn it on, is going to spin these things. This is by no means a high-end defense system, all right? But it does kind of work. And I'm going to try and get out of the way, and I'm going to turn this thing on. You can see that these things spin. Okay, let's go out there. Don't mind him. I'll talk about him in another episode. All right, let's come over here. So we can see now these things are spinning, and any bots that get close are going to get either ragdolled, or the impact will cause damage, or both. And eventually it will take them out. This is a very easy defense system to set up. It's very cheap. This is just scrap stone that's in use here. Couple of bearings and a gas motor, and the tank isn't even required because it doesn't use that much gas. I wait to turn it on until the timer is almost zero, basically. Go ahead and turn that back off. Turn it back off, and they all just stop randomly in the way. You can push them out of the way just to give yourself room again. There we are. But I'm going to show you how this raid works, but I'm not going to ramble on for 20 minutes just waiting for it to happen. So we'll cut here, and I'll be right back, and we'll take a look at what the raid looks like. Okay, as we can see there, the raid timer is now down to game time 1 hour 38 minutes, which is basically 2 minutes in real time. So raid should be happening very soon here, within 2 minutes. So kind of need to get ready. You can see some of the crops are actually spawning and making their final stage, so we can actually pick them. Even though the raid hasn't started, if I get rid of all of these and pick them, even if I pick them all before the raid started, the raid's still going to happen. It's determined earlier when the illegal farming pop-up comes up. But I can, in this particular situation, because of the timing that I used, I can pick these so that they're not at risk of being destroyed. Now, that doesn't mean that the bots on the raid aren't going to come in here and break all my walls and destroy all my things and try and attack me. They still do that. They'll still come in here and they'll try and break everything in this area during the raid. But at least I can get my crop out of the way. So, again, that wasn't the best time to plant, though. We only got about 30 seconds. I'm going to actually jump up here and stand on top of my watering mechanism, just because it'll be a good vantage point for us to see what happens when that timer drops. So we got about 15 seconds, and we can see that there's no real enemies in sight. About 10 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my little protective, whatever you want to call them. My farming defenses, very primitive, but they do work, at least to help. And there's the timer's gone, and you can see we've got some tote bots coming in from that side, and we have another one coming in there. And that looks to be it. It's just 3 of these little little bots. You can see that guy just got launched into the water. That guy just got hit in the head. That guy just got launched back. You can see there, it's not the best defense, and in fact, it's a little bit awkward because I can't just jump down there and go fight them safely. Kind of have to turn it off first. You see this guy is able to beat on the wall a little bit before he gets hit because the height that I've set them at is one level higher than would be ideal. But they'll keep trying, and then I can either stand here and wait for that to get done and then go repair the wall and all that, or once I know it's reasonably safe, I'll just turn that off, jump down here with my hammer, and take out any remaining robots. So that's what a raid looks like. That's the lowest classification of raid, just 3 little tote bots. And it's because my crop value was pretty small. I only planted 10 seeds, and each seed was only worth 1 point, so it was the absolute smallest kind of raid that we could have. Very manageable. Don't even need these defenses for that kind of a raid. I could have just jumped out here and fought them off with my hammer, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like. And with a little help from the wiki there, I'll have the image there shown on the screen where you can see that there's different kinds of bots that start showing up. At this point in the game, you know, at least in my videos, you've seen the tote bots, you've seen the hay bots. There's other kinds of bots that are a lot more difficult to deal with with your hammer. Tape bots are basically like snipers, and then the farm bots are very large and require many hits to take them down. So the hammer becomes kind of ineffective, and this is where one of those kind of, I won't call it hidden, but less than obvious methods of progression are in the game. As you want to grow your crops and maybe plant larger and larger crops and use automated systems to maybe do more than just watering. I mean, this whole setup is actually designed so that I can expand on this and add a seed planter and a harvester and all kinds of other things using vacuum pumps to literally just automate this entire process. So it will plant, water, fertilize. Once it's grown, it will harvest into little storage containers and just keep that process going nonstop. And then have enough automatic defenses to where the whole thing defends itself as well. And these 5x5s, which make a 25 square, basically becomes, with 4 of them like this, a farm of 100 plants. So those values get very high. So one of the reasons that you want to progress in your farming is to get to the higher level crops. And those other types of seeds don't commonly drop anywhere that I've seen. But through a little exploration, you can find a trader. And I'm going to go ahead and jump to that location so you can see what that looks like. So if you're out exploring, you may come across some unusual signage. And this is kind of an indicator that you're close to the merchant. I just want to show you some of these signs. You kind of see these. There's different kinds that you will find depending on what direction you came from. But if you do see them for the first time, it's a good idea to go ahead and investigate and look for this building right here off in the distance. And while you're out exploring, if you find this guy first, some of the progression that's available to you becomes a little more obvious. If you find first a packaging station, and I'll show you that in a little bit, then you might be a little confused as to what its value is and what it's for. If we take a look at this billboard, this is referring to this big device here in this little area and the big push button over there. And it's suggesting that we can somehow get a hold of these big crates. These are actually packaged fruits or vegetables. And then some poor farmer stuck in a cage, which you may find that first too. and not know what to do with it, but we can place them on the platform, push the red button, and then they will be sucked up into this big vacuum pump. And that doesn't tell us the whole story, because it doesn't tell us what that's going to do for us. If you come over here and talk to the little merchant guy, now we can start to get a little better indicator of what's going on. He actually has a shop. We can buy fertilizer by bringing him carrots. Now, that's not saying bring me a carrot. That symbol is indicating bring me a package of carrots. And so first we have to figure out how to package them, and then we can start to buy these things. And some seeds that he has for sale, bananas and oranges and blueberries and cotton, those don't drop in the world as far as I know. These things you can build yourself, so buying them from him doesn't make a lot of sense. You can build your own saw blades and your own grinding bits. This and these 3 weapons you can't really get any other way, to my knowledge. And this is where some of that progression is. These weapons make it, I'll say easier, but the reality is possible to fight off the more challenging bots from raiding your farms and in other locations, which we'll get into in the future. But like tape bots, which stay at a great distance and act like snipers, they hit super hard. They're very difficult to deal with a hammer. But if we had a spud gun, and this spud gun, yes, actually shoots potatoes. Potatoes you don't eat in this game. They're ammunition. But to get one of these guns, we need to bring him 2 packages of oranges and 2 packages of blueberries. Now, when you first start out, you don't even have access to those seeds. And also, we have to bring him a caged farmer, which we have to find as well. So, this kind of gives you an indication of, if I'm going to advance in my ability to deal with more challenging bots so I can farm better, I first have to trade with this guy, and maybe I can get some of these things. These over here are garment boxes. You open these using a special robot you build back at your base. You build a little garment bot, and you can open these there, and it just gives you decorative clothing and stuff to wear, and backpacks and stuff, as far as I know. But these do drop in the world out of chests and stuff that you find, so I don't know that I would ever buy them from him. Maybe later in the game I might feel differently. A potato ammo container, I assume that's just so you can cart around a whole lot of potatoes for your potato guns. Or probably connect it to this mounted spud gun. That's probably what that's for. But we can see the totals here, and you can see I've already been here before, because he's already got a package of red beets and 2 packages of tomatoes. Also, when you're here, take a look over here. These are actually free seeds. You can just take these if you need them. And the first time you meet him, they might be very helpful to take those from him. And they're free. You can just take those. All right, so then becomes the question, how do we get things packaged? How do we package our fruit and vegetables to get them over here? So there's 2 different problems there. How do we package it, and then how do we deliver it? The little car that I built isn't going to be able to haul around packages of fruit very well, and I'll show you what those look like. And neither will my rock grinder or my tree harvester, so that's what caused me to have to build another vehicle. So let's go take a look at that. So you might have seen in some of the other videos these kind of what I call my spud truck, if you're familiar with the reference to old vehicles, old farm vehicles. And really it's just a big old flatbed with rails on it, and it's got a nice wide wheelbase, or long wheelbase and wide stance. Just enough suspension so it can handle driving around in the terrain. And gas motor. I actually put some suspension on it just so it can handle a little bit of rougher terrain, because I knew I'd be driving over land here. A little bit of suspension, just enough to get by, and this huge cage to hold our packaged fruit. And then also, with the little push button, we have kind of a lowering gate. Now, I don't like how this is hinged right now. It was hinged this way because there used to be some equipment in here. I'm going to change that eventually. but right now it's still functional. All right, let's take a little drive over to a packaging plant, which you can see right there. And these maps are random tiled, so your map, your merchant may not be that close to your first packaging plant. But let's go take a look at what that looks like and how we use it. All right, it is just a short drive, so let's head on over and try not to go in the water. This truck actually came out performing and handling way better than I expected. It's a little bit stiff because I have to keep the suspension cranked up to handle all the weight. It's a little bit stiff when it's empty, but when it's loaded, it actually handles the weight, which is good. So if you come across one of these, before you meet the merchant, you might not understand its value. That's what happened to me. And there's actually two kinds of packaging plants that I've found so far, one for vegetables and one for fruit. And let's take a look at how this thing actually works. I'm going to swing around here and we'll take a look. This little guy is just a beacon. I actually placed that here so that I can see where it is in the world. Similar to that oil beacon you see over that way, a little oil icon. Does the same thing for me. So this is the input side right here. You can see that it can take carrots, and it's actually got a carrot in it. Broccoli, red beets, and tomatoes. If it wasn't for this sign, you might not know how to get those things loaded in. You can see here they suggest a container connected to a vacuum pump, and then basically shooting the vegetables into the machine, the packaging station, and then it suggests that it's going to launch out a package of things. And that is why on the front of my truck I have mounted this container and vacuum pump. Now let's take 10 tomatoes, we'll throw it in there. We'll try and line up our truck to the tomato inlet. Woo! Gotta be careful, this thing is a little spicy to drive. I can tell you that it does not have to be lined up perfectly, so there's no need for perfect driving here. There we are. All right, about there should be good. I'm hoping that's high enough. This is the first time trying to use this. There's only 7 bars that highlight here, but it actually wants 10 of each fruit. So if I push that button, it says there's no connection. Ah, my switch. I never connected my switch to the vacuum pump. There we are. And look at that. We launched a tomato in place. And that one seemed to work. All right, so we just need to get all 10 in there. Oh, and there we go. And out comes our giant package of tomatoes. So it's that simple. Now you don't have to have this mounted on the front of a vehicle. You can actually just build some little blocks here and connect it right here in the parking lot and leave it there if you want, and then just show up and add your materials to it and launch them into the container. I like to, right now at least, only place 10 in at a time because I'm still pretty new at this. I want to make sure that I'm not wasting anything. And you could even set up like a little timer that activates and just auto launches all of your vegetables in there. Let's go ahead and do another bit of tomatoes, and then we'll throw them on the truck and go for a little drive back to the merchant. You could also park a vehicle over here and try and get them to land inside the vehicle, but I don't know if that's really worth it. It's at this point in the game, I'm not producing so much on my farm that I have to do this often. It's actually not happening all that often. Now I just loaded blueberries, but realized that they can't go here because they're fruit. So I'll need to go to the other packager to do that one. So for now, let's just drive over and gather up those tomato packages, and we'll take those up where we need to go. And I'm going to go ahead and lower down the tailgate so it's easier to load. And you can just pick these up and carry them and put them in your truck. That's another reason why I'm not too concerned about the automation of this part yet, because the volume that I'm hauling is just not that high yet. So a little bit of manual effort is fine. We have to make sure that suspension's okay. Yeah, actually it's handling that perfectly fine. So let's go ahead and head back over to the merchant and trade these in. Now, conveniently, the merchant's very close to this packaging station, as you saw earlier. Might not always be that case, but I mean, overall the map's not that big anyway, so you're never going to be too terribly far away. I don't have a ton of experience yet in learning the map's randomization. You will need an upgraded gas motor, at least upgraded once to get up that hill though. Alright, and then all we do is we don't really have to unload these things. We can actually just pull right up onto this area, roughly in line with the big vacuum pump. And we just push the button. And for each time we push the button, it'll take one of those packages. And that's that. Now we'll see that the tally of my trade now shows up. Now I have 5 total packages of tomatoes here. Now why have I been bringing him tomatoes? Because I wanted a package of orange seeds. That is the #1 reason. I've actually already managed to get my hands on some blueberry seeds. Now we can get orange seeds. This is what I am after, is this bud gun. Orange seeds, blueberry seeds, we're going to have to go find the fruit packager for that. And we got to go find a caged farmer and trade them in. So, I'm going to go ahead and cut here and try and find me a caged farmer. And once I do, then I will show you what we do with that. So this fall biome that I found while doing a little exploring out looking for my farmer has cotton, which is handy, and this is where I've picked up some cotton from before. Cotton is needed for making the little driver seats that you sit in vehicles, and then apparently it's also used in other places. And then I just noticed this strange looking little camp right here. And in this camp is a farmer in a cage. And there doesn't seem to be any way to interact. I can't right click to pick it up. That works. Alright, let's get these boxes and then we're going to try and get him out of here. I kind of wonder if I just want to knock him around with my hammer until I get him out by the truck. Oh, it seems like he'll be real easy to get hung up on things. But we're not going to worry about how rude it is to leave him in the cage and just smack his cage with a hammer. Just ignore that part for now. I think my truck is in this direction, so that's the way we're going to go. Because the merchant wants you for something. Let's hope it's to free you, because I don't know how to free you myself. Alright, so here's the road. I'm pretty sure my farm truck is out here. Alright, time to slow down, buddy. I'm sure it's real fun in there. It's like an amusement park ride. Alright, let's stop him there, see if I can find my truck. I think it's somewhere out here. Well, I hope it is anyway. Hopefully robots didn't completely destroy it. I don't think that usually happens unless it's like in their way. Maybe it's down over here. Hey, there it is. Oh, I left it out by the packaging facility. Okay. You can actually put a beacon on a vehicle, by the way, and then you'll have an icon to go find it anytime you want. I just haven't built all the beacons for all that good stuff yet. Alright, let's go see if we can get our farmer in the truck, and then we'll try and drive him over to the merchant, because that'll be a lot easier than rolling him the whole way. What I would really like is a helicopter with a claw on it, so that I could kind of just pick them up and carry them to the merchant. But for now, this might work. Alright, I'm trying to line them up and get them up the ramp. Well, that didn't work, did it? We just spun them around a lot. I have not perfected my hammer skills. We can kind of just... Oh no, he does stop eventually. Just wondering if we can, like, just walk and push him up the ramp. I don't want to have to launch him from a great distance. Well, alright. This is not as easy as I thought it would be. Alright. Give me a few minutes. I'm going to try and get this guy in the truck, and I'll be back. Okay, that was way harder than it should have been. This is not going to be an effective method for the farmers. Don't really know how many of those I'm going to need, but a vehicle maybe designed a little better for dealing with that would be great. In challenge mode, if you're familiar with that, you learn how to just take on various challenges. One of them is to use a vehicle to pick up a ball and put it in sockets, and the ball is about the size of the farmer cage, maybe a little smaller. So making a little forklift-like contraption to be able to pick those things up would be a lot better, even if I don't have a fancy helicopter or something. Alright, so let's take him down to the merchant, and this should work exactly the same way as the packaged vegetables did. There's our little merchant location. Alright, let's go ahead and give that a transfer, and there we are. It should show up now on the merchant's trade inventory. There he is. We're making some progress now. Alright, so we have now seeds for oranges, and we actually have enough blueberries to package those up. I just have to go to the other packager, but I have to grow some oranges first. Then we'll be able to get a spud gun. Then we can grow a bunch of potatoes and deal with more difficult raids, more difficult enemies. And that's kind of the whole thing that I wanted to show in this video, was about how the progression works. And this is a big hurdle because you need a vehicle to get those large containers here. You need to work your way into the second tier of seeds. You have to be able to fight off the harder enemies and deal with all of the, you know, raiding of your farm and all of that, and learning how not to plant too much, and gauging, you know, what you can actually defend your farm from while you're trying to get to this point before you get a ranged weapon that can be a little bit more useful at dealing with some of the bots. Whew, that was a bit longer than I expected for that particular episode, but thank you for watching.